Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back. I just finished running through the streets of New Arkham, rummaging through every trash pile I could find, and then I brought all the garbage back to Lovasić here so I could trade it in for something slightly more useful. It didn't get us much, but we did at least end up with one set of lockpicks and a few extra SIGs. There are a few other points of interest I'd like to visit before we push into the second half of the demo, but since we're right here, let's pay a visit to the bank real quick. This event is, of course, supposed to give us forewarning that we're heading into a dangerous situation. Unfortunately, at this stage of the game, we don't really have a lot of options, so we're going to have to head in there sooner or later. Let's have a quick chat with the guards. Let's try chatting with the other one instead. You see a burly mob member watching the entrance of the ruined bank. Spit it out. Who is that? A raving lunatic, one of those wackos who couldn't face the new order of things and completely lost it. They seem happier than most, though, and I'm happier when I see one with a sucking hole in his chest. What are you guarding? The place looks destroyed. I'm not guarding the bank, you mutt. I'm guarding the streets from the raving lunatics inside. You better run along now. The Bank of Arkham, built soon after Massachusetts became a federated state in one of the oldest surviving buildings in town. But as with every other structure, it is now subject to the slow decay enveloping Arkham. Spine-chilling murmurs sound from within. The bank is where the second half of the demo takes place, and it's basically full of combat encounters. We're pretty well equipped for it, but it's important to remember that we don't have the save system or the camping system implemented, so let's go visit a few more points of interest before we theoretically bring Detective Kipling's life to a premature end. Our first stop is going to be Richter's drug shop. Without the game's planned camping system to fall back on, we're going to be entirely reliant on consumable healing items. Plus, this does give us the chance to do a little more sightseeing. This is where Richter conducts his experiments with new and enhanced narcotics. A variety of flasks, tubes, and other glassware, as well as a scientific scale and microscope, provide everything needed for basic chemistry. The many types of drugs on these shelves indicate this was once a proper drugstore, before Richter took over. At some point, this medical cabinet made the journey from St. Mary's Hospital into Richter's greasy hands. The fact that it is always under lock and key implies the contents are important to Richter's drug manufacturing process. And I've put it off long enough. Let's talk to Richter. You see a middle-aged, educated-looking man with a hint of danger in his smile. This must be the owner of the pharmacy, Richter. A new one, surprising. And just when I thought I had finally run out of possibilities. I mean business. You know, our numbers aren't growing these days. Now tell old Richter what makes you tick. I rarely disappoint. This place is pretty well guarded for a drugstore. And your mouth is pretty big for a person interested in my merchandise. Let's just say I'm a valuable asset to the mob. Now tell me, what will ease your suffering? What kinds of medicine do you sell? Ah, the kinds that people really need. Tell me what is absent in your world. Euphoria, relief, self-confidence. If I don't have the remedy already, I can make it in my little laboratory. Are you selling drugs? Mostly cocaine, morphine, amphetamine, laudanum, nerve tonics, opium, and some of my special home formula to make your life better. Did you have something else in mind? Actually, no. And now YouTube thinks this video is about drugs. At any rate, let's go ahead and look at Richter's stock. Like I said, if we want to survive all the way through the bank, we are going to have to pick up at least one or two things. Richter is your primary source for healing items, both for your health and for your sanity. But much like booze, many of the items he offers also come with significant drawbacks. It might actually be possible to also become addicted to some of these substances, but I'm not entirely certain about that. We'll be keeping it relatively simple. We'll just pick up 3 shots of laudanum and a bottle of hydrochloric acid. And that will burn through the vast majority of our current cigarette stash. So we're pretty much done shopping for now. Now let's head back over to the French Quarter real quick. I spotted a couple of points of interest over there while I was rummaging through everyone's garbage. This charred and decrepit palace, which once hosted many events and receptions as the Gentlemen's Club of Arkham, has been rechristened the Blackened Club by the surviving locals, and serves as Waxface's criminal fortress. That's another building we can't enter in the demo, but from the description it certainly seems like you'll be able to enter it at some point during the main campaign. Having served its time on a daily run to Innsmouth, this bus never suffered from an abundance of customers. Yet now this timeless limbo has left it with no purpose at all. This is the first of the points of interest I wanted to visit. This is one of the objects in the game that you can interact with using your various special skills. In this case, because I have lockpicks, I can go up to it and salvage it for a few extra goods. Looks like we've recovered a baton and a copy of Little Women. Well, I wasn't sure what we were going to get out of that, but that certainly wasn't it. Let's take a quick look at our new prizes. Okay, Little Women is a book we could read to restore sanity if we had the humanistic belief system. And the baton... It's actually slightly better than the shiv we currently have equipped, so let's go ahead and swap those out. I suppose a police baton is more fitting for a detective anyway. It's also worth noting that if we had taken training in the science skill, we could continue scavenging the bus for additional parts, but since we don't have the appropriate skill, that option doesn't appear on the radial menu. You see a determined young woman with quite a pallid complexion in her 30s. Her outfit gives hints of a metropolitan sensibility. You sense an air of hypochondria attached to this mysterious woman. Excuse me, sir, I'd like to ask you something if I may. How can I refuse such a beauty? You can sense the anger rising inside the woman. Abstaining herself, she continues. I'm looking for my husband, a slender, long-faced gentleman from Boston. His name is Randolph Carter. All I know is he arrived in Arkham. Do you know him or anything about his whereabouts? Well, let's see here. I did, but the details will cost you. She looks you right in the eyes. You think you've caught a glimpse of disgust for a short while. Tell me something you know about him and you'll have your money. Convince me. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like I have any good options here. I'm guessing my personality score isn't high enough. Oh well, I tried. He's lost, and you're his wife? I'm afraid this conversation is over. Goodbye. Yeah, I'd probably walk away from that too. No expense was spared in the construction of this beautiful mansion, which exemplifies the design of its period. The structure has somehow remained unscathed and is obviously still occupied, though the relentless vines have begun to assault it most aggressively. This particular gangster is wearing a gas mask. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed that before. Then we've got a little homeless camp set up over here in this old train tunnel. There's a lot of pretty scenery out here, a lot of interesting buildings you can't enter, but like I said last time, I have to imagine that most of these are buildings you will be able to enter in the final version of the game. For example, there's a lot of references in the pre-release material about being able to go up against the mob, so in theory, once you actually triggered that particular questline, you'd be able to access a lot of these mob-related buildings, like the Gentleman's Club or that mysterious vine-covered mansion. But since there's not much else we can do out here right now, let's get over to the bank and we'll start our search for Safety Deposit Box 0. The Bank of Arkham is a pretty straightforward dungeon crawl. There are a few fights, there are a few minor puzzles, and there are a few plot-relevant narrative items to discover. Things might get pretty tough in there, so we may end up having to pull out at least once or twice just to go resupply. And here we are. These cracks spread ominously in every direction, like veins reaching out from a malignant tumor. That's very reassuring. That looks promising. The hood of this armored vehicle was stove in when the driver smashed through the wall. By the look of it, he suffered a painful death in the process. Alright, well, much like the bus... Oh, there's our second set of lockpicks. Lockpicks are consumable items, so now that we have... And hold that thought. Now we have our first real fight against some of the dangerous lunatics prowling the bank. Okay, so once again we find ourselves on the hex grid of turn-based battle. We've at least got some pretty scenery to take advantage of here, so let's immediately start moving our gunners up behind this low wall. I believe there is a basic cover system in place. At the very least, you can break line of sight by standing behind certain objects. And since we're outnumbered, we're going to want to burn through some ammo to try to take some of these guys down as quickly as possible. The Outsider also has a few spells that we could theoretically take advantage of, but we've still got a few more fights ahead of us, so we should probably try to conserve his sanity. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we managed to drop any of the lunatics this turn, so they will get a chance to fight back. And that howl of insanity will do minor sanity damage to everyone in our party. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Moving into round 2. Looks like a couple of the madmen go first. There's a minor hit on the Outsider. And another hit on Detective Kipling. Ooh, 2 solid hits on Detective Kipling. Not only did that do significant damage, the critical hit also caused him to lose additional sanity. I believe it also caused him to gain angst, but I'll have to check that on his character sheet after the battle. Let's stay focused on trying to knock down these madmen. Ooh, and another solid hit on Detective Kipling. We're already in pretty bad shape. Honestly, at this point, we should probably be giving some serious consideration to pulling back to those purple escape hexes. But let's keep fighting. Okay, we've dropped our first madman, but we've still got 3 on the field. We'll pull Kipling back to a slightly safer position, and then we'll focus on taking some of the pressure off of the Outsider over there. Though the Outsider is a bit of a tank, so he can hold his own, at least for a while. Oh, but now you'll notice that the blue hexes have appeared. Those allow us to theoretically escape the battle while still progressing the storyline. We essentially wore down the madmen enough that even if we flee from this fight, we won't have to worry about encountering them again if we come back this way. It's an interesting combat mechanic that theoretically allows non-combat-oriented characters to still progress through the game's many combat encounters by simply focusing on surviving long enough for an escape route to appear. Though in this case we've already taken down most of the madmen, so we might as well stick around to finish the fight. I think you get more salvageable loot if you actually kill your opponents. Though, of course, that also comes with additional angst, which can be both good and bad. That takes care of our first group of madmen, and we just hit level 2. We also picked up +4 angst because, once again, we've killed a bunch of people. And we picked up an assortment of salvageable junk, including a handful of old keys, which we can trade in back at the antique shop. Unfortunately, most of this other stuff isn't particularly useful, at least not in the demo. But as long as we're on the inventory screen, let's go ahead and use a couple of shots of laudanum. I was hoping these would last us longer, but I also wasn't expecting to take that much of a beating in our first fight. We should also go take a look at our level up options as well. As you can see on the right side here, I have an assortment of perks I can select based on my current attributes and skill levels. There are several potentially useful perks, many of them related to combat, but there are a few non-combat perks mixed in there as well. I would usually focus on taking perks that grant bonuses outside of combat, but since I know we have several more fights ahead of us and we only have a few more shots of laudanum, I think we should probably pick up a perk that will help us finish the next few fights more efficiently. Let's go ahead and grab the Gunslinger perk. That will grant us a small bonus to both accuracy and damage as long as we're wielding a firearm. Speaking of which, we also gained 2 skill points, so let's put one of those into firearms and we'll put the other into subterfuge. We're in a bank, so I'm sure there will be at least a few locks to crack. We also just hit level 1 angst. That's interesting. Okay. I'm guessing the third tab that I can't actually click on here is the one that would control our angst menu. Like I said before, I wasn't actually sure if the angst system was implemented or not in the current demo, but I also never actually gained enough angst to reach the next level, so I guess this does confirm that it's not in just yet. Oh well, moving on. Let's go take another look at that armored car over there. We've got lockpicks, so we'll crack it open. Ooh. Looks like we pulled a military police revolver, and a bunch of old money, and a handful of .38 caliber ammunition. I'm guessing that goes with the military pistol. Let's get a quick look at that gun. This is actually the first time I've played a character with the subterfuge skill, so I don't normally get to see these items. It's definitely more powerful than our current .22 caliber revolver, but we have very little ammunition for it. So what I think we're going to do is, we'll hold off on equipping it for now, we'll burn through the rest of our ammo with the .22 revolver, and then once we run out of .22 ammo, we'll head back out into town to sell off all these keys. And we'll purchase some more .38 ammo, so we can use the military revolver for the rest of the fights. Here's some canned rations, some screws, and a few more cigarettes. We'll take that. And let's check out this optional back room here. Okay, looks like a pile of rubble and a set of filing cabinets. There's a few more wads of cash, which I think are only good for crafting purposes. And Bank Manager's Note number 1. Let's take a look at that. Notes written by the old bank manager detailing his interactions with the stranger requesting a new safe deposit box. under the number 0. The manager's shaky handwriting clearly conveys his anxiety about their meeting. I've never been a man who puts any stock in superstition, yet my experience today has shaken my once strict convictions. I had an unannounced visitor. He was a tall man, dressed in a finely cut suit and topcoat, all of an impenetrable black. And his face, well, peculiar as this may sound, I do not remember a damned thing about it. Not his age, the look in his eyes, or the color of his hair. When I try to recall the details, my mind goes completely blank. Well, that's certainly curious. I suppose it's fair to surmise that this mysterious stranger was in fact the DIsmal Man. Well, let's push on deeper into the bank. There are at least a few more clues to discover. Obviously, we're going to want to go talk to that stranger over there, but first let's check out this filing cabinet. No notes, but we did get another shot of laudanum. That'll certainly come in handy. And there's some more wads of cash and a few more cigarettes. Now let's head over to the counter. The shiny bits of crystal from this ruined chandelier glitter like stars against the filthy floor. These partitions were originally placed to discourage customers from entering sensitive areas. Now the only function they serve is to provide cover in a gunfight. Well, I guess that gives us an idea of what to expect then. A strangely presentable man in a sharp suit waits eagerly at one of the destroyed cash counters. The moment he sees you, he begins to speak rapidly and enthusiastically. Hello, sir. How may I assist you? As you can see, this has been a very busy day. It looks like the boom has finally come to Arkham. It's nice to see our little town thriving, don't you think? Well, I wouldn't say thriving. Oh, you don't agree? But we are all free to express our opinions, right? That's what makes this country so... His voice cuts off abruptly and he freezes in place. He doesn't even blink. He looks almost like a living statue. Yeah, I'd better go. Some men are endowed by their creator with certain alienable rights. Let me help you with your transaction, sir. May I see your credentials, please? Does this suffice? He instantly grabs the object from your hand. Let me see. It says you're a despoiler of secret sins. Here are your documents, sir. I hope they will aid you in the game of misery, piss, and shit. Well, that, I think we may have suffered some sort of breakdown in communications there. And we're fighting. I have to say, he doesn't look nearly as dapper now that he's come out from behind the counter. Well, obviously we just walked into the middle of an ambush, but it looks like we're off to a good start. That madman up in the top right corner has become crippled with overwhelming despair. That gives us a chance to even up the odds a bit. We'll focus on the enemies who haven't gotten to take any actions yet. Whoops, not quite enough, so let's move Detective Kipling a little further away from that guy. Oh, but he's very upset that I decided to shoot him, so that makes for 2 enemies we don't have to worry about this turn. There's a minor wound on Detective Kipling. Now let's have Eduardo take a couple more shots. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's 1 enemy down. Now let's focus on the next most immediate threat. And we'll move the outsider up to engage this other guy. Ooh, that's a solid critical hit. And I think that madman just smashed himself in the face with a rock, too. And now he's dead. It also looks like our swift and brutal takedowns have already opened up the escape route, but I think we'll stick around and finish these guys off. This gives us the chance to use up the rest of our weaker ammo anyway. Oh, it looks like the other madman has decided to join the fray. Kind of. And it's interesting to note that the escape squares actually move up behind him. That really does seem to reinforce the idea that your main goal is just to get past the enemies, not necessarily to destroy them. It's also important to note that as long as you flee using the blue squares, you'll still gain experience points for the battle, as if you had overwhelmed the enemy. The rest of the post-battle rewards are all trade-offs. If you crush your enemies in combat, you'll get more lootable items, but that's theoretically offset by whatever resources you had to use to win the fight. You'll also gain less angst if you actively flee from fights, but as I've said before, angst perks all provide some sort of benefit, but they also make it a lot harder to maintain your sanity. I think we have enough bullets and laudanum to last us through at least one more fight, so let's keep pushing on. Winning more and losing less seems to be an investor's fundamental principle nowadays. And I don't think I can actually reach those cabinets. Okay, let's move into the next room. Ah, and there's another batch of madmen. Of course, it is worth noting that if I had trained in the stealth skill, we could theoretically sneak right past these guys. In our case, we're actually going to have to shoot our way through. But let's see if we can reach some of these containers first. There's a few more cigarettes. Now let's... oh, okay. And the struggle begins once more. Looks like a pretty stand-up fight this time. We're slightly outnumbered, but we've got plenty of desks to take cover behind. We'll try to focus on hitting targets that go late in the turn. That way we can theoretically kill them before they actually get to attack us. Fortunately, we've got at least one opponent who's crippled with overwhelming despair, so that buys us a little more time to focus on a different target. Oh, we've got two enemies crippled with overwhelming despair. And that guy's gone completely crazy and started attacking his allies. Well, things are definitely going pretty well for us this time around. Alright, moving into round 2. Let's go ahead and keep taking shots at these guys. That dropped our first madman. Now we'll start focusing on the next one. And that mad woman is shaken off her despair and... oh. Well, she took a shot at one of her allies and then tried to smash her own face in. Eduardo just dropped our second madman. That just leaves 2 more targets on the field. Looks like the desks are serving us pretty well here. Again, we could push past these guys to the escape hexes, but I think we've got the fight under control. We'll take another couple of shots at this bearded lunatic. Oh, and I think that actually just used the last of our ammo. The crazy woman is up next, so let's see if we can get lucky here. There we go. Eduardo handily guns her down before she can take any actions. And the outsider starts mauling his own foe. Nicely done. I think that's our most efficient battle yet. We pull a bit more experience, we've got 5 more angst, and we've got an even greater assortment of loot items. Nothing particularly useful, but there's definitely some valuable trade goods in there. Now let's check out a few more of these containers, but then we really do need to head back into town so we can resupply. Oh, and there's Bank Manager's note number 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. But stranger still, I swear by our God and Savior Jesus Christ that he knew about Frederick. He knew of my only son, about his incurable disease, and not just the fact of it, but every symptom, every maddening detail. He claimed to have certain powers, that he could cure my boy. All he asked in return is that I install on his behalf a safe marked with the number 0. It would be our little secret. Curiouser and curiouser. Oh, and there's a locked safe, but unfortunately we're all out of lockpicks, so we'll have to come back to that. There's a few more cigarettes. We can certainly use those. And we have exactly 4 bullets left. I guess we could risk getting into another fight, but we really should turn back. Let's just check out these last 2 containers here. There's some rations and a few more wads of dollar bills. And there's a lot of cigarettes. I don't see any more madmen, but I also don't see any more interactive objects. Let's take a quick peek in the back room over here, and then we'll head back into town. There's a few more lunatics. We do have 2 more shots of laudanum and 4 more bullets, so I think we can handle 1 more fight. At this point, I think we've got a pretty solid handle on the tactics. We'll just hang back and focus on 1 target at a time. And if things get a bit too rough, we can always retreat. If we're lucky, we'll also see at least some of these lunatics wasting their turns or attacking each other. There we go. Okay, let's bring up the outsider. And hopefully he can finish this guy off. Nice. Eduardo is up next, so let's bring him up near this rubble. And he can start firing into this pack of lunatics over here. Close, but not quite. Now we're moving into round 2. Looks like our unfortunate detective is soaking up a bit more damage there. But I think we've got this under control. We just need to focus on the closer lunatic. There we go, there's another one down. Now let's focus on taking down the guy with the beard before he gets another action. Okay, and that just leaves us with 1 more target. Let's bring up the outsider. He can get in a quick swipe. And now we should be able to shoot her down before she can take any more actions. Very nice. I think that was our last bullet, too. That nets us the usual rewards, a few more experience points, some more angst, and a collection of assorted saleable goods. Let's go check out those safes. A silver necklace and a gold ring. Not particularly useful, but certainly valuable. And another locked container. Well, we'll have to come back for that container once we have more lockpicks. We're completely out of ammo at this point, and we're running pretty low on medical supplies, so now we definitely need to head back out into New Arkham. That'll give us a chance to stop by Honest Bill's pawn shop, and we'll swing by Isolde's antique shop too. It'll take a moment for us to get there, so let's fast forward real quick. And here we are back at the antique shop. I decided we'd start here since we've got all these keys to sell. And Isolde has some pretty nice, high-value goods. Well, first let's see how much he's... Oh, he'll actually buy the valuables from us too. That's interesting. Well, let's go ahead and dump all these goods into the offer menu. And we'll see how much he's willing to pay for them. It's definitely a pretty hefty pile of cigarettes. I guess we should get rid of this book, too. Since we have the materialistic belief system, it's not going to do us much good. That's going to give us more cigarettes than we need. So let's go ahead and pick up a relic while we're here. We are pretty late in the demo at this point, so we're not going to get a lot of benefit from any of these things. But we might as well pick something up. Well, if this were the full-fledged game and not just a demo, I'd probably want to start by raising my presence. That would make it a bit easier for Detective Kipling to manipulate the NPCs he interacts with. So let's go ahead and grab Crawford's Knight of Wands. And then we'll round out the rest of the trade by asking for a few hundred cigarettes. I could actually afford to pick up another relic if I really wanted to, but that wouldn't leave us with enough cigarettes to buy the bullets and the basic supplies we need. Alright, we're pretty much done here. Now let's fast forward to Honest Bill's pawn shop. And here we are at the pawn shop. What you first took for a statue is actually the petrified corpse of Bill, who was frozen forever in the exact moment of his agonizing death. The rapidly drying beeswax became his burial shroud. Well, that's grim. Now, we're here for two basic things. We need bullets for our new gun, the H&W Military Police Revolver. That takes 38 caliber rounds. And we need to pick up some more laudanum. Behind the bars is a stern-looking man who looks deeply dissatisfied. Although he looks to be in his 60s, the man invokes a certain kind of respect and fear. Say, are you here to buy something or just wasting my time? What is that wax statue doing over there? Ah, you mean Honest Bill? He's dead, but they kept him around for decoration. Turned him into a statue. He used to own this place, see? Until he crossed Waxface. Can you guess how they did it? Poured boiling wax over him from head to toe. You should have heard the screams. That's enough, or you want more details? Tell me about Waxface. He is the boss. Not around much these days, though. He put me in charge of the pawn shop, so here I am. What a dead end. And let me give you some advice. Do not ask about Waxface if you want to live. Now, you buyin' or you want I should ask Charlie to make you leave? Is Charlie the smiling blonde fellow? Charlie is the smiling blonde fellow that can fill you with more lead than you'd need to build a boat. Alright then. He's not the most personable fellow, but talking to him did remind me we need to equip our new, trinket. There we go. That raises our personality to a slightly more respectable 5. About average. And now let's put that average personality to good use. Say, are you here to buy something or just wasting my time? Name's Joe Clements. That's Mr. Clements to you. I am someone you shouldn't be curious about. Former jeweler for the Cordelinis, current grocer of Arkham. You live in a cave or something? The ruling family of Chicago, barons of the underworld. You came here from Chicago? Such brilliance! How did you make that connection? Ah, there we go. How about a discount, Mr. Clements? How about a smack in the face from my friend Charlie here? But I can bring you a lot of quality goods. I go to places that no one else does. Then you sure must be hanging near the arse of this rotten town, and I don't like it when people stink. But maybe you'll be of some use to me later. There's a place you can visit for me and earn your discount, I'll let you know. Until then, you're just another punk. And sadly, that does seem to be a quest that is not yet implemented. So let's just take a look at his inventory. a lot of the quests that we can't actually access at the moment are probably ones that are tied to the world map that we won't be able to access until we can actually leave the town of New Arkham, which, based on what I've seen so far, involves finding some way to cross the Miskatonic River. Okay, let's take a quick look here. We'll take all of his 38 caliber bullets. That's 150 SIGs. I guess we should take a look at the other weapons he has to offer while we're here. But I think we're good with the military revolver. He's also got a lot of other goods we can look at, but the only thing we're really interested in are more shots of laudanum and all the lockpicks he's got to offer. I don't think we can really get much use out of the rest of this stuff, at least not with our current character build. You know what, we'll grab that sleazy magazine while we're here. That seems like the sort of thing that Detective Kipling could get some use out of. Now, of course, that's a pretty lopsided deal in our favor, so we'll need to even the scales with a big stack of cigarettes. In a full campaign, I'd be a little more frugal, but we're coming up on the end here. Alright, that should give us more than enough ammunition and laudanum to see us through to the end of the demo, so let's get back over to the bank. And here we are back in the Arkham Bank. Let's go ahead and crack open this locked safe over here. And it looks like that gets us a bottle of Reggie's whiskey and a can of Camper's canned beans. Not great, but we'll certainly take it. And now we'll push into this back room here where the second locked safe was. And we'll crack that one open as well. And that gives us the Leprechaun's Bounty, an artifact. I've never actually seen that. A leprechaun's gift to a mortal grants the wearer luck. And looking at my stat bar there, it appears that gives me a plus 5% chance to critically hit. That is definitely very nice. As I said before, I've never actually run a character with any focus on subterfuge, so I've never actually cracked open these safes. From what I'm seeing, it's definitely a useful skill. That takes care of the locked containers, so let's push into the last room. Some morphine, an empty syringe, a blank notebook to replace the one that I left back on the antique shop counter. And there's Bank Manager's Note 3, as well as an assortment of other consumable items. Let's check out this note. However I try to erase it from my mind, I cannot forget the man's reply when I ask the significance of the number 0. Well, little man, every countdown ends with 0, does it not? This safe will be necessary after the end of all that is. God forgive me, but I did as he asked. I concealed the accursed safe in the wall of my office 2 nights ago. It seems that damned motivational poster served a purpose after all. I swim in dark waters now, and, God forbid, should I vanish. Oh, I guess he died while he was writing it. That is tragic. Well, let's take a look. That is probably not the promotional poster he was talking about, so let's check out this other one. Yeah, that looks more promising. Journal updated. The safe that should not be there. The haphazard effort to brick up the hole in this wall suggests that someone wishes to conceal something behind it. Let's take a quick look at our journal. I found the chamber housing the safe deposit boxes, but it seems the one I'm looking for is behind a newly repaired wall. If I cannot access the other side myself, I should find someone to help me. Now, there are multiple solutions to this puzzle, but in this particular case, I made sure we came here prepared. This is actually why I picked up that bottle of hydrochloric acid when we were at Richter's pharmacy. So, let's go ahead and put that to use real quick. For some reason, I can't seem to interact with this wall. I should be able to bring up a radial menu, and then from there I should be able to use the hydrochloric acid, but I may have actually run into a bug here. Give me a moment and I'll see if I can figure out what's going on. And we're back. It turns out the problem was a basic one. Detective Kimball has 0 points in the science skill, so he doesn't get the option to use hydrochloric acid. Instead, I just need to walk up and use my investigation skill to find a weakness in the structure of the bricks. And I'm going to guess it is this odd protruding brick here. And there we go. Now we have access to safe number 0. That gives us access to a Cthulhu statuette and the Dismal Man's poem, and it updates our journal. We've picked up a new quest called Your Carven Doom, and we picked up a second quest called A Cryptic Poem. There's our experience point reward for progressing the story, and we also recovered a pretty hefty chunk of our sanity. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at our new acquisitions. A small gray-green stone idol of a grotesque winged creature. Although you cannot be sure of its age, it has an aura of abysmal antiquity. I'm guessing that's the sort of thing we could probably ask about down at the antique shop. This weird poem is maddeningly opaque, offering more in the way of confusion than clues. Reading and rereading the time-worn page, you wonder if you'll ever learn what the man you're after meant by writing it, if it means anything at all. The soul of a scavenger of the seas shall be found inside a bottle of lead. The last destination of a bodiless starfarer shall be heard from a mouth not of flesh. The drop of crawling chaos shall be stolen under the ruins once halls of wisdom. The viol of Zon shall be played at the underground pates of your ancestors. And the book shall be read which should not be read. Only then you may wish to call me by the timeless stones on the nameless isle. Only then you may wish to walk by me between the endless realms of pitch black. And that, of course, is essentially an Eldritch scavenger hunt list. Those are all the items I assume we'll have to track down in order to summon the Dismal Man. The safe deposit box also contained a grotesque statuette of one of the Awakened. Will it help me, I wonder, or hasten my doom? I finally acquired Safe Deposit Box 0, but it only raised new questions. There was an enigmatic poem inside the box. Is it meant to be a prophecy or a set of veiled instructions? Perhaps both. And sadly, the current demo won't actually let us leave the town of New Arkham, so this brings our journey to an end. Do not interfere with us, ape. Well, at least we're ending on a happy note. At any rate, I hope you've enjoyed watching me play this demo of Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones. The game is still currently under active development, and while the developers at Team Cultic haven't set a hard release date for the final version of the game, they will be releasing a public version of this demo in the near future. If you'd like to ask Team Cultic about the demo, or just find out more about the game, then you can contact them through their official email address, or you can visit their official website, their official YouTube channel, or the original crowdfunding page on Kickstarter. As always, links are in the description.